May 14th, 2018. That is a date that I will never forget. You see, at that point, I was already working for a large $24 billion investment firm, and I was going to go for my mid-year annual review in hopes of getting a potential raise, if not a promotion. Instead of telling you what happened, why don't I just show you instead?
Hey Peter, it's been a while since we did our last review, so why don't you tell me how you think you've done so far?
Well, boss, as part of the two-man investor relations team of this large S&P 500 company, I believe we worked hard and executed well. We even did pretty good on the special project for the CFO.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. That's why we're ready to extend this generous raise to you.
Want to know what that generous raise was? Well, it was a whopping 3%. Yay! That's right, after working long hours and often on projects that were not a part of my job description, I was rewarded with a raise that barely beat inflation. But instead of being angry at the situation, I decided to be proactive. That's when I started to dig really head deep into some of the most successful minds and thinkers of our generation, like Robert Kiyosaki and Warren Buffett. That's why in this video, I'm going to give you the one fact that opened my eyes and ultimately gave me the confidence to quit my Wall Street career. But make sure you stick to the very end because I want to give you an exercise that you can do back home to help you make this meaningful financial transition yourself. Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Peter Duan and I'm an ex-Wall Street professional turned investment coach here to convert your financial fears into financial freedom. The reason why I started this YouTube channel is I believe this society is in dire need of financial literacy. And so if you want to support me and my message, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button as I'll be doing this on a weekly basis. Now back to the topic at hand today, which is talking about what gave me the confidence to quit my six-figure Wall Street career. Specifically, we're going to look at three things. One is, why doesn't our school system teach us about financial literacy? And if they don't teach us that, what should they be teaching instead? And finally, what is that one fact that ultimately gave me the confidence to quit my Wall Street career? Well, it has to do not so much with incomes, but rather how incomes are taxed differently. Okay? Now, let's start at our broken school system. As you can see from this picture here, not much has changed other than the fact that it's a black and white picture and some of the clothes are a little bit outdated. At least they got social distancing down. Oh, too soon. But other than that, little has changed since the late 18th century when this industrialized form of education came to power. Matter of fact, Alvin Toffler, who is a futurist writer, wrote it best. He said this: mass education was the ingenious machine constructed by industrialism to produce the kind of adults it needed. The problem was inordinately complex. How to pre-adapt children for a new world, a world of repetitive indoor toil, a world in which time was to be regulated not by the cycle of the moon and sun, but by the factory whistle and the clock. The very organization of knowledge into permanent disciplines was grounded on industrial assumptions. Okay? And this is the crazy part. I read that quote from Future Shock, which is a book that he wrote back in 1970. And this is the genesis of his idea behind this book. He says, the main point of this book was that the modern men will feel shock from the rapid changes. And the reason why I bring this up is that despite the fact that this book was literally written 50 years ago, a lot of these things have come to pass that you should be aware of. And so the two things that I want to point out are whole branches of industry die off and new branches of industries arise. This would disproportionately affect unskilled workers who may be compelled to change their residence to find new careers. And finally, people of post-industrial society change their profession and their workplace often. People have to change professions because professions quickly become outdated. Okay? And matter of fact, this is actually seen from a previous video where I talked about how the rate of technology is impacting disproportionately the unskilled employees and the skilled employees. You see, the World Economic Forum came out with a report 2 years ago measuring the impact of technology with the degree of reskilling that's needed at the employee level. At first, it seems pretty nice. 46% of the world's population does not need any level of reskilling due to technology. But what does that mean is that on the inverse, 54%, or the majority of people, are already impacted by technology and they need some degree of reskilling. Of course, some are less than 1 month while others require more than 1 year. But this is already seen in today's world. Okay? And what are the implications behind this? Well, the employees are going to get drowned by this technology wave as AI and data rapidly changes not only within the technology industry, but every single industry. Unskilled laborers and even some of the skilled laborers are going to be disproportionately affected by this onslaught of new technology. So who's going to be insulated from this? Well, it's going to be the business owners and the investors who are going to be able to ride this wave off efficiently. Now, speaking of investors, if you ever want to grow and manage your own investment portfolio, I created a step-by-step guide where I call the Ultimate Guide to Investing for Financial Freedom. If you want, you can go ahead and click the link below and you can download it today. This is a step-by-step guide that I teach my own students as well as I follow by myself, so I hope you find it useful. And if you're one of those people who are saying, I want a little bit more hand-holding and more tailored approach to learning how to invest, I invite you to a free 30-minute consultation with me where I will give you an investment game plan that you can carry out onto your future lives. And if that's of interest to you, that link will be below as well. Now, going back to the topic at hand, which is talking about our outdated school system. And as you can see, it's the fat business owners and investors who are keeping this industrialized education system into perpetuity because it benefits their own interests. Okay? Now, what is one way of keeping good employees or keep producing good employees as opposed to producing good critical thinkers, which are absolutely necessary to navigate this fourth industrial revolution that's coming up? Well, it's to keep them broke, aka don't teach them about financial literacy. Okay? So what do they teach in school? What they teach in school is rather garbage. Just say, work hard, get a good education, and you'll get success. But what should they teach you in school instead? Well, they should teach you to work smart, aka be mentally flexible and think critically. And how do you think critically and be mentally flexible? Well, you need to gain a certain level of practical knowledge. And when you combine those two things together, that will generate you success. Matter of fact, I know that some of the smartest people back in high school studied calculus like I did back in high school. But when I was working even in Wall Street, I never used a single calculus equation during my entire time there. Okay? So that's why it's really important to gain good practical knowledge. And one of the best businessmen who are able to distill high complexity of the financial and business world into actionable steps is obviously my main hero, Robert Kiyosaki. He is the author behind Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he came up with this quote that I truncated, but I feel like it's most important and most relevant to why I quit my Wall Street career. And the quote goes like this. It says, it's not how much money you make, but how much money you keep that really matters, okay? So now let's break this down. What does he mean by that? There are 3 different types of incomes. There's earned income, which is like your normal hourly rate, wage, or salary. This also can be your Uber or your babysitting money, aka anything that you exchange your time for money, okay? And then the other 2 types of income are investment income and business income, which are rather self-explanatory. So how is it different, okay? It's not so much about how much money you make, but how much money you keep, right? So what does that really mean? It all comes down to different levels of taxes. So let's look at how earned income versus business and investment income differ in the way they're taxed, okay? So if you looked at earned income, it's on a sliding scale. And that scale at the federal level is anywhere between 10% to 37%. And at the state level, it can be 0% over in certain states like Florida or Texas, all the way up to 13.3%, which is in California, where I originally resided, okay? So if you're using a hypothetical $100,000 made in California, and you take the standard single filer deduction of $12,400, you get roughly taxed at 30%, okay? Now, what about the business income level, okay? Well, the difference between the business income versus earned income is that 2 things. One, it's a fixed 21% rate. And second, you pay taxes after your deductions, which in other words means you get to spend first and then get taxed later. What do I mean by that? Well, for instance, I currently am renting out this bedroom because of COVID. I'm not allowed to move anywhere, and therefore I'm also using this to film and conduct my business. And so therefore I get to offset some of my income here by taking some deductions because this is part of my business. And so how many of you guys who are in the employee section can say that they get to deduct the rental income or the rental expense from their income? I bet none of you can, right? And so that is the massive benefits of business income. There's large corporations like Amazon, for instance, who make hundreds of billions of dollars, yet they don't have to pay much taxes because of certain loopholes like this, okay? So hypothetically, again, if you're a small business and you get taxed at the full 21% rate, then the $100,000 goes down to roughly $79,000, okay? Now, what about investment income? And this is what I get most excited about. Well, if you look at investment income, it's also on a sliding scale, but the sliding scale is much less onerous than that of earned income. What do I mean? Well, the investment income ranges from 0% tax all the way to a whopping 20% tax. But that 20% tax rate, you won't even hit until you make on average $441,000 a year, okay? So for most people, they're either taxed at 0 or 15%, okay? So in other words, if you make $100,000 in America, you get roughly taxed at $85,000 if all of that came from investment income. So as you can see, whether it comes from earned income, business income, or investment income, out of the three, investment income is by far taxed at the least amount, okay? So what is the exercise that you can do back home? Well, you can just simply pull out a piece of paper, draw this very simple chart of and split it between earned income, business income, and investment income. If you find that all of your income is coming from earned income, you probably want to consider moving or at least investigating some of that income from businesses and investments. So just to summarize, what are the facts that gave me the comfort to ultimately quit my Wall Street career? Here it is. Number one, our school system is clearly outdated, and the sole purpose of this outdated school system is to produce good workers based upon the standards of the previous industrial revolution that occurred well over 100 years ago. Second, financial literacy is not taught, and that's because the system does not want us to be independent, whether financially or even mentally. And third, it's not so much about how much money you make, but how much money you keep that really matters. And again, if there are only three types of incomes, which are earned income, business income, or investment income gets taxed at the least rate, which is why I believe everybody should be an investor. So there you have it, guys. These were the facts that gave me the courage to quit my Wall Street career, and hopefully I gave you some tools so that you can take home and start investigating outside of the earned income world and into the business and investment income world. My name is Peter, and hopefully this has been helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.